and welcome to DLP TV. Our topic for tonight is Barbadians should not have to live in fear. Joining me tonight would be our candidate for St. Peter, Mr. Jason Phillips, and Mr. Fanus, along with Felicia Dujon. We'll start tonight's show by showing you a video of our political leader, Mr. Ralph Lauren, in Parliament last week, speaking about the tint legislation.
Amendment. Today's amendment is not only creating that admixture of functions, but it is creating a situation of trespass against the judiciary. After today, what shall be the function of the judiciary, the courts, in relation to Regulation 20, Sub-Regulation 7? What shall it be? Has the court lost its function in relation to the question of tint, or will it share that function with the minister? We don't know. But there can be no shared functions between a minister and the court. That is the point. And that is my point of departure from this legislation. It's a fundamental point of departure. I say again to you, sir, and I say to this country, that today's amendment as a legal issue of some gravity is that this legislation is unconstitutional in that it offends against the principle of separation of powers. I hope, Your Honor, explained this action according to its political, philosophical underpinnings, its legal, philosophical underpinnings. I have explained it as a matter of statutory interpretation, and I further explain it as a matter of constitutionality. In all respects, Your Honor, I find this legislation wanting. In all respects. I have argued, and I close in reminding you, sir, its political, philosophical underpinnings are flawed. Its legal, philosophical underpinnings are flawed. Its statutory underpinnings are flawed, and its constitutional underpinnings are also flawed. This legislation, according to my assessment, and I have the right to assess, is entirely flawed. And the flaw has now manifested itself in legislation that the public does not like for other reasons. That it is an unnecessary imposition on their peaceful lives. I say their peaceful lives, that the majority of people in this country who have dark tint are honest and innocent people who just wish to protect and preserve one of the major investments that they will make in their life, even if they change the car. A car in Barbados still, it may not be a luxury now, but it is still a cherished possession. And I want to say to this government that it is trespassing on financial and economic rights of the public in its enjoyment of its private property. And that is not to make a constitutional point. That is to make a financial and an economic point. That this legislation is an unnecessary trespass against financial rights. And the point is, why should anybody wake up whenever the regulations are passed? Why should anybody wake up on July 1st and be exposed to the payment of $500 a day simply because he has tint on his car? That is the ultimate question that the public is entitled to ask. That is the ultimate issue that the public is entitled to resist. It is a matter that is worthy of public resistance. I am not condoning civil disobedience. All that is left for me to do, sir, is to ask the government humbly to withdraw this legislation as a nuisance piece of legislation and a necessary imposition against an innocent public. This will not solve any criminal wrongdoing in Barbados. It certainly did not prevent the last death of a 24-year-old child last night. It did not prevent the shooting of an honest citizen in the Ivy yesterday. It did not prevent those other 19 persons who lost their lives this year to murderous wrongdoing, nor the 50 plus who lost their lives last year and the years before, when the numbers only dropped because of a COVID restriction. Criminality in this country is on the rampage. Where lies the fault? In tint? It does not, sir. It does not. And that is where the logic is brought to bear on this issue. Criminal wrongdoing does not have its roots nor its causes in the affixation of tint on people's windows. I ask the government, please withdraw this legislation and let the good, honest, and innocent people of Barbados carry on with their social and financial lives without this disturbance from a government which is merely pursuing acts of diversion to compensate for its gross inability to bring the question of criminal wrongdoing under control. This will not do it. This will not do it, Your Honor. You've been very patient, sir. I'm obliged to you.
Welcome back, viewers. Welcome back to the DLP TV listeners. And of course, we'd like to introduce our panelists. We have over to my left, Ms. Malissa Howard, who's new to DLP TV. We also have Mr. Comrade Jason Phillips, who's also the representative, I think the candidate for St. Peter. And we also have Mr. Damien. Good evening, our attorney at law. This evening we are touching on a very sensitive topic, a topic that is very intimate to us, and it primarily deals with our safety as citizens. How safe do we feel in our homes, in our communities, and the wider community? And these are the kinds of questions that we want to raise. And at the same time, we want our viewers to, of course, dialogue, have conversation with us, and not forgetting Ms. Sue Harris, who is also with us online, who will be part of the conversation and part of this discussion. So this evening, as we've seen, our opposition, and Marcia Weeks. Good evening, Marcia. I hope that everyone online can hear me this evening.
Yes, good evening, Felicia. Good evening to all the panelists, and I can hear you very well. Can you hear me?
Marcia, can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you.
Hi.
Good evening, everybody. Hi.
Good evening.
Yes, everyone looks great this evening.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can, very clearly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, Marcia. Hi, everybody.
And also to our viewers, I would appeal to you that the conversation that we're having, we want you to participate, because it's a very important discussion that we ought to have. The discussion about citizenry, dialogue, and of course, safety and security is an issue that we need to touch on very intimately, because these are matters that affect us as individuals. And as we have seen, the opposition leader has spoken on the tint issue. And I will go through the table with my panelists and of course online to see what are our thoughts. And the main question is, do we feel safe at home? Or do we feel safe at our homes, our communities? And when we say safe, what exactly do we mean in terms of our safety? Does it mean personal safety? What does it mean community safety? These are the kinds of conversations that we will have. So I will pass on for first discussion to the ladies, of course, and we will start with Malissa, and then we will go online. Malissa, how safe do you feel, not only at home, but in the...
To ask me personally, to see what's going on in the country right now would be very difficult for me to say that I feel safe. I could be walking along the street and it may not be meant for me, but it could have been meant for somebody that has being close to, walking past. You do not have to be involved in criminal activity these days to be shot. You do not have to be involved in criminal activities to be stabbed. These things can happen at any time. You can see elderly person being robbed in broad daylight.
Yeah.
We have persons like an older lady. This couple of days ago, it was reported that she was raped several times.
Yeah.
So it is very clear that our safety is not what it used to be.
But how do you feel about it, hearing all of those kinds of violent incidents towards the vulnerable? How do you feel as a citizen? And in such cases, as a woman, how do you feel?
It is very heartbreaking to see that women are more vulnerable these days. We were already vulnerable,
Okay.
but it has gone to a point where you are in your home and someone can break in, not only rob you, not only kill you, but violate your body. It plays on your mental. And the question is, how do you want to experiencing something like this?
And we're going to get a little closer to that discussion, but I just want to have Sue and us come in and have a quick in terms of safety. And I know that, Sue, that you will not leave it Barbados, but I could imagine that you do visit and you come very frequent to your home. And how do you feel in the last few years? How have you felt being in an environment where there's constant reminders of the violent natures of our society and, of course, the law-abiding citizens and how it affects them? So I will start with Sue first, and then I move across to Marcia, and that you will share. So go ahead, Sue, if you can hear us clearly.
Yes, I can hear you. How do I feel? So it's heartbreaking to hear, when you're living overseas and you're speaking to your relatives, your friends, and one of the things that has changed for us is when you hear the news or you see it come across your screen, you call your relatives, and your heart is kind of is stopped because you're hoping that they pick up the phone and it's not them. Because before, you would be like, that's probably a criminal or something. And as Melissa said, it could be anybody. So that has changed for us, that when we hear the news, we call our relatives or we text them, and we're looking for the two ticks to see that they're actually answering and it's not them. So, you go through the various relatives that you have, and especially if it's in an area close to where your family is, that you get really nervous. So I'd say we're more anxious here in the last 2-3 years, and more so in the last maybe 6 to 8 months. And it's not a good feeling. It is not a good feeling.
Thank you for sharing that, because there's one thing that we understand, that when we have family, we would understand there were certain pockets of violence and family itself, but now those pockets are widened, and that becomes more problematic. Marcia, would you like to share? I know you don't have much time with us. Would you like
Yeah, I'm not sure if it is my audio, but I wasn't hearing you well. I think you're asking me to share if I feel safe in the country. Is that what you're saying? In the community, in the country. Well, first of all, let me say that this feels so good to be on the other side. and it's so happy to be with you all tonight. It's an honor. I normally am watching. I might have a meeting or two, but I'm watching on the evenings, and so here I am. I'm a guest. Oh Lord, it's honestly a great feeling to be on, and I do want to permit me just to say a big thank you to the leader of the opposition, Honorable Ralph Thorne, for the work that he's doing, and how he's really standing up, for us, for Barbadians, and he's that voice inside of Parliament, and we are in total support of him, the loyal opposition, and also the senators, the opposition senators. I mean, what would we do without them? They are in there, and we're working together. you know, especially even with this whole tint, what's happening with this tint legislation. If he didn't sound the alarm, you know, I mean, where would we be right now in terms of having the facts on the matter? So I really want to say that up front before I start, and to say that the DLP TV is doing such a great job and filling such an playing an important role as well. And I want to affirm the DLP TV that you're a voice of opposition, and you do it so well. So to all the producers and everybody, I really wanted to say that before I did anything else, right? And I love your set. I always come on to see what the set. I'm like, yes, I like it. You know me. I like all this fancy dancy, and so I love the set, and I love to see how, you know, people like Malissa. I'm singling you up, Malissa. How Malissa is growing, and I love this young man who is the lawyer who's there, and all the candidates, Felicia and the other candidate for St. Peter. I listen and I can see the growth and the fight and the zeal. And I know I'm talking long, but it's my first time, and I want to use the opportunity to say that I really, really believe that you guys are doing a great job, and affirm what you're doing. Okay? Can you hear me well? Are you hearing me well?
Thank you, Master. It's just that we have some new equipment and new testing at the same time. We want to ensure that we serve all of the Barbadians, the country, and of course in the diaspora. So I heard that we're not hearing that.
Right. We're not hearing very well. We're not hearing very well. It could be me.
It could be me. Yeah, I'm not hearing well either.
I can hear you clearly. Can you hear me?
Okay, a little better.
Okay,
Well, to answer the question, let me quickly go and answer the question after I did all of that introductory speech there. I will say that I've been living here 26 years and more, a little over 26 years, and I've never felt this the way I've never felt so much fear. When I say fear, fear. I try not to be a fearful person. That's why I'm feeling for the words. But the thought comes in my head when I have to leave home, you know, Sue and others, that thought is there. And when you're driving and somebody comes up to the car window, one time your car window down, now you want to turn it up, you know. And only last night, a group of a student and some of our friends, they went out to Sabi on the Bay, I'll say it. And you know, early this morning she called me and she said, Auntie Marcia, we almost got robbed last night. I said, what do you mean? Yeah, she said we almost got robbed. And you know, the plan, they heard the guy was saying if they ever retaliate, they would just shoot them. They had to jump in the car and make a getaway, and she was driving. And you know, she was telling me, she said, Auntie, I tried to hold on, I tried to stay calm to get everybody home. You know, these are 18, 19-year-olds who go to the beach and sat down and have a nice little drink and going home. You is finished now, and they're relaxing. So you know, definitely there's a lot of fear. You know, of course, you know, as somebody who's born again, I'm really not desiring to live by fear, but you could feel it in the environment.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Master, and of course, thank you for sharing that. I think it's important that we understand the psychological effect that it has on us. So sometimes we may not be direct victims, but we're indirect victims, and how it actually affects us in terms of violence and crime within our society. So I will turn over to our comrades so that they can share their perspective. And the question is, how safe do you feel at home? And remember, we're going to be very busy this evening. We're going to hear our listeners. The realness, the kinds of matters that persons have to deal on an everyday basis by using our own experiences and examples, and of course, persons that have shared their own experiences with us. Okay?
Good evening, everyone. Colleagues, good evening, Barbados. But I want to start by saying that I am middle-aged, and I grew up in a Barbados where, especially on a Sunday evenings, I have a big a big meal. Peas and rice, macaroni, salad, coleslaw, chicken, what have you. And then you will open your doors and windows and relax. You let them go. Now, Barbados has changed. Barbados was like this. Sometimes you leave home, you left your clothes on the line, and you would even be able to take the clothes off and put them in your house too. And now today, sit in the gallery or patio. This is a real good. But that was not. But today, we are afraid because of criminal today. You know, and government feels this Barbados Liberal Party to do simple things like make sure the highway is of proper electricity.
To that. We'll coming back to you in terms of the possible solutions of what we think in terms of the responsibility of the state, what do we like look at, and the kinds of policies and the role. Because we've heard quite a lot when the Democratic Party speaks, we hear Parliament had politicized money. And so when we get to that, I think we'll have to that. But let us allow Conrad here to share his thoughts. The safety of citizens in their own
you would imagine that there is an increased trepidation here when one steps out into society to probably just go about their business and live their everyday lives. When I listen to that older generation, that oldest, right? Because obviously, Barbados is a hot planet, and you want that girl to pass through your home. And even if you left, you want to do your business, somebody will left for you. Right? There's this sense of community camaraderie, community policing, right? As society has evolved and things have changed, you find that now that community camaraderie has disappeared. And we seem to be living in a society now that it is much warfare when it comes to crime. There's this struggle mentality, or this mental warfare when it comes now to making dollar or to gaining assets that probably they tell themselves individuals or persons, whoever who engage in illegal activities or illicit activities that they want. And the only way that they see to attain these things is to take it from others. Right?
That's a very interesting perspective, because we know that in the element of morality, what role does morality play in crime regulation. Today we listened to the news, I think it was 7:30 or 8:30 news, where I heard the social scientist, Professor Barbados, where he spoke about the impact of crime on the society itself, and he said it's trending into a pattern that can become very threatening for our society. And it was very interesting in this news article. So you have a social scientist from the university speaking on the nature of crime and the effect that it will have in the near future within our society. And then we heard directly after, we heard the church society, members of the church in Barbados, speaking again on the level of crime within society and how they try to intervene or mediate or advocate to change the patterns and behavior of young persons. And you see, it's very important when we notice that persons within the society are part of the opposition party coming out and speaking on those issues. So my question is, whether it is from the University of the West Indies or from the religious sector of the society, do you agree with
either one of them, that crime is spiraling out of control and that we need to do something immediately. So I will allow Ashley to speak very briefly on it. I think she has to leave. So Marcia, I don't know if you listen to the news today where the social scientists were speaking about the factors of crime and where it is heading. And I'm hoping that many persons got the opportunity to listen to her what he was saying based upon his research that it is getting out of hand and that we need to urgently intervene on this matter. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's very difficult to hear. I don't know if the viewers are hearing, or if you're even hearing me, but I can't hear the discussion. So I think you were saying that something about crime getting out of hand.
Yes. So we have Professor Douglas from the University of the West, which is a social scientist, and he indicated that based upon the research, what they have been observing is a spiral increase on violent crimes, and it signals that the government needs to urgently intervene. And right after his report, we heard from the Christian Society that they too also have a
Okay, I think I'm gonna answer. Hopefully, I understand what it is that you're asking. Yes, I believe that that it is getting out of hand. We're going to hear from the sociologists. We're hearing from the churches. We're hearing from everybody. In fact, I mean, I was reading the other night some posts that were made by Eric Lewis, who is, he's in the social media space. He's always praising the government, except for this area of crime. He's saying that I feel afraid. He gave a story of going to the bank and got so afraid that he didn't even bother to leave the car because he wasn't sure who the other person was who was there, and he was really afraid. So I think, having not heard everything you said, I think you're talking about a sociologist on the radio today, and I will have to agree with them that something has to be done. And usually, if we live in our homes, we're in our homes, guys, and something is off, right? We don't expect that it's the children that they are going to go and try to fix, this particular thing. If something is wrong with the door, and you as a wife, Felicia, feels afraid, your husband, a good husband, is going to try to go and fix the door, right? And then they're going to fix the windows, and they're going to make sure you're secure. Put up the they're going to put up okay, I'm seeing two of you. They're going to put they're going to do whatever they can to make you feel secure. The leaders. And so with that, I'm saying in a family, the parents in the family, they're going to ensure that those who live with them, those who are under their care, that they are safe. And it is the same thing that that is being asked of the leaders of this country. You are the leaders. You are the ones who are leading. It is you. And if it is that we are not feeling safe, then it is important that we do something about it as the leaders. We can give ideas, Sue. We could go ahead and give ideas to the leaders. I could go and tell, if I'm in my home and I'm in Jamaica and we're afraid, as in the children, I could say, Mom, you could do this, or Granny, you could do this. But ultimately, it's what mommy and my aunties, I didn't live with my dad, and my granny, and what they're going to do to make me feel safe. And we have leaders. And so we're looking to the leaders and said, well, what is it that you're doing? And they have answered us and told us, tint. I'm not sure. I think they're yes, Sue, I think we might have to carry on until they're back in.
Yeah. So the question, I didn't hear. I had gone out to come back. So the question was, tell me, remind.
And so I believe what Mrs. Dujon was saying was that, there's a lot of discussion
Mhm.
on the radio today by professionals. You have
Right.
sociologists, you also have the clergy and various
Mhm.
other persons who are in the society who are
Mhm.
saying, there's a problem here. We have to do something. And so I was just saying that you really, at this point, you really need to turn to leadership.
Yes, I totally agree with that. It has to be, the response has to be from top down in this case. Yes, I understand that there's parents and everybody else in the church and everybody else has responsibility, but at this point, this is a crisis now, and it really needs we really need leadership at this point with this crime, because this is something that cannot be solved by mom and pop. It can't be solved. It can't even be solved by the church,
Yeah.
by kids going back to church. We have, we are way past that now. So we really need to be looking at leadership, at who governs the country, who you are in charge of law enforcement, and they need to come with cogent plans, and communicate that to citizens what it is we're of course you're not going to say exactly how you're going to deal with criminals, but at
Mhm.
least to make us feel safer
Yes.
as we go on our daily lives in Barbados. I'm sure you're going to work, you're going to school, you're going to the supermarket, you're anxious, and it cannot be what I'm seeing or hearing is silence, really, because tint is not a response. That's a non-starter.
Yeah.
So at this point, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I definitely agree with you. I love how you say it's a non-starter. When I think that I was watching Mr. Thorne in Parliament, and thank God that he was able to stand up and to really speak up
Mhm.
concerning this whole this legislation. But the other person who stood up to was Dr. Brown. I don't know if you saw that, Sonia Brown.
I think I saw a headline where she said, you don't negotiate with criminals.
Yes, yes. I think I'm not. Yes, I think she said that. But what she also spoke about tint, and that
Okay.
it's not a solution. And what was interesting, Sue, is that you did not see anybody else. And if I checked, I
Mhm.
didn't see anybody else, Sue, that stood up and
Mm,
defended this legislation. You know how they could get. I didn't
right.
see anybody standing on the floor. I have not heard any of the other members of parliament, standing up to defend this thing. Isn't
Yeah,
that strange?
that
Isn't that
is very, very strange, because I am sure, just like you and me and many others our families, if you're living in Barbados, somebody in your family, they're feeling it. Their experience. This is their lived experience every day, and the folks who are in Parliament, the ones who are representing us, I am sure that their families, their constituents, are saying they're feeling this pain. They're feeling this fear and pain. So why would you not, as you said, why would you not? Why are you so silent? It's very unusual, I'd say, because this is the worst that we have been for a long time,
yeah?
if ever.
Yes, yes, and I think I see the team back on. It's live TV and these things happen. But it's when you can recover. This is awesome.
Can
Yes.
you hear me now?
Hello, hello. It's much
A
All
better.
right.
little better.
A
Yeah.
little better.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you to our audience as well for being so cooperative, because we were the ones who informed us. I imagine my Thursday being the host and the voice goes over. But these are very interesting areas that we need to diverge a little bit further in terms of what are some of the, because we know what crime is, we know the nature of
crime is said to be any act or omission that is against the law, in some cases the state or individual legally. But the question is, what are the causes? And I think this is sort of the question, not that we ask as social scientists or criminologists, but as citizens in a society, we may want to look at by the community further in terms of what do you think are some of the causes of crime, because we're government making sure that tint will resolve the majority of all crimes, whether it's hate crimes, whether it's violent or criminal crimes, that tint will resolve it. We're seeing all kinds of things, and we're also seeing that the transfer of ministers, one minister being here, and then if we have another minister that is responsible. So we seem to have a level of redirection of responsibilities and duties, and obviously we understand that our citizens looking ahead and looking at the outlook we're seeing in government that really does not know how to deal strategically with the nature of crime, and of course the most important part, the consequences of crime. And I think I have to agree with you that what we're seeing is actually consequences of crime, and not really the nature of crime and how we deal with it. So I think this is of course to my colleague to ask just to
Sure.
what is the thing that has the big causes of crime? Particularly our context, we're not looking at anything outside, we're looking from the Barbadian context. What do you think that are some of the most serious concerns that emanate from the nature and the consequences of that?
Okay, so it seemed to be a challenge again. But I think she was I think that she was talking about what are some of the consequences of crime. Do you want to?
I think, yeah, I think that's what she was saying. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Right, you go ahead. You go ahead.
But what I would like to say to Barbadians is that if we have MPs that cannot even defend this, what's happening? If we could clearly see from their body language, the body language of the MPs, that they believe this is nonsense. This is trash. This is nonsense that is happening.
That they themselves believe that.
So, and this is one time they weren't interrupting the leader of the opposition. They know that is nonsense. I mean, and so we are all as a citizenry, we all understand that something else needs to happen. And this is why we are going to be out this Saturday. And when I was contacted by the producer, I was asked to come on to talk about Saturday, what's going to happen soon. You're not going to be here, but those of you who are watching, yeah,
I wish I was.
We're going to be marching because we are saying to our leaders, we are not safe. We do not feel safe. And I think, Michelle, I'm calling you Michelle because it's you're in the diaspora. Okay. I think, that our leaders need to listen. Need to listen. And if they don't even listen to us, watch the body language of those ministers that were in Parliament when this was being discussed.
Yeah. Read the room. Read the country.
Go ahead. What is it?
No, I was saying read the room. Read the country.
Read the country. And so we're inviting everybody to come out on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. Why are we going out there? And it's not just because we're against tint. It's because, listen, we're in a serious situation here. And we recognize that our leaders, they do not have the solutions. And as the citizens, we are making a demand on our leadership. And we're saying we're not safe. Our children don't feel safe in this country. Our children
or elderly are not safe. So it's Saturday, and what's the date and the time and at the place? What's happening?
Saturday, June 14th, and so we're going to be meeting at Kensington Mall. Right there, Kensington Mall is where we're going to be. We're gonna, and we start on time. So 10 o'clock, the truck is there, and we're down the road, and we go down to Independence Square. We've asked for extra time outside of Independence Square so we can have, not in the square, but on the outside. Just before we go an extra probably 30 minutes to do our final speeches and any little
Mhm.
things that we have to do. But most of the speeches will be on the truck itself. And because, as you said, we're reading the room, we're reading the nation, we recognize what is happening. We, that, as I said, that young lady called me this morning, 18 year old, 19 years old, and saying, Auntie, this is what happened to me. Leaving Savvy on the base. She wasn't leaving at midnight. Just as dusk was coming up, they went to the beach and they were leaving. Why can't we enjoy this beautiful country?
Marcia, I really hope that people come out, families, children, bring your children, bring the kids out, because this is important. This
Yes,
is important. And if we were in Barbados, we would have been there and supported that march on June 14th, because this is our lives. This is our lives.
correct.
And we have to send a message to the government. This is not okay. It's not okay.
Yes.
I think they're back.
I think our host, we are the guests, but our host is back. Yes. Right. Are you muted? I'm not sure if
We
you're
can't
muted.
hear.
Live TV, I tell you.
I know.
What happens? I know, I understand it. It's live TV, Sue, and these are the things that happen.
These things happen. You have to go with the flow.
We go with the flow. Can we hear the host?
I'm not hearing the host right now. I can only hear you, Marcia.
Yes, and I'm hearing. I don't know what the people, if the people are hearing any of us.
Can the viewers hear us? Can you put in the comments if you can hear us?
Okay. Well, can they? Yes, if somebody can let us know if they can. You hear Sue and Marcia? We can't hear our host, and they're looking so beautiful there.
So if someone can put it in the chat if they can hear us. Okay, somebody says yes, they can hear us, Marcia.
Okay, but they can't hear the host?
Can you hear the host?
Or it's just us?
Oh, somebody says, but not the host.
Not the host. Well, I know the producers are going to be working backstage to make it happen.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, all these things happen. But as I said, the protest march is a public outcry against what is happening. A 76-year-old woman, raped at gunpoint. And we have not seen any bulletin. I have not seen anything. I live in St. Philip, and I did not see any bulletin, Sue, that went around to warn the females in this community.
Yes.
And Philip, I have not seen. I didn't see. Or heard from my MP, or anybody, any leadership.
And Marcia, that's the least you can do. That's the least you can do, is go into the community and warn families, warn, other elderly people that might live alone, even. And or try to find out, who's living alone, who might be more vulnerable than others. And so, I mean, so you have not heard anything at all? Are they community police?
Didn't see the police. Nobody came to say nothing. Nothing is said. So that because as far as I understand, this woman was just doing her chores on the outside. There are people like in my community here. They go in their gardens. On the outside of their homes, at the back of their homes. Some people, are tying out their livestock and so on. I mean,
was it early? Was it early morning or?
It seems like it. Someone may be able to correct us, but it might have been early morning. That it happened. But the point is, though, that we heard nothing on the radio. There was nothing telling our people to be careful. Nothing. Because again, why? Our leaders, what are they trying to do? Trying to keep everything hush hush and to pretend that all is well. But then when you do that, You're basically putting a plaster over a big sore, which is what they're doing with the tint. Putting a big putting a plaster over a big sore, and it's not going to work. Not speaking about it, so it won't help.
Yeah, because I don't even, I have not even grasped the concept of tint, because it doesn't make sense. These are smart people, and I imagine they're smarter than you and I. And the thought of suggesting and then making it a law and then taxing people or giving them an additional financial burden about tint while you're suffering and fearful is just unconscionable, Marcia. It's unconscionable.
Yes, most definitely. Let's see if we can hear them.
Guys, can you we can't hear you again. I Can you hear us? Can you indicate if you can hear us? Okay, we'll Felicia? Maybe not. Can somebody put in the comments if you can hear us and hear the panelists?
I know they're working on that.
Yeah, I'm sure the producers are.
They are
Because
working on that, and this
yeah.
show has been such a blessing. And on a Tuesday, Thursday, we're logged on. Dave and I, are listening, etc. And I know sometimes Dave is commenting as well. And but these things happen. But we're not going to let the time waste. We're going
No,
to
I no, and Marcy, tell us some more about the march. Tell us some more about the plans, or who's going to be there.
Yeah. Well, as I said, it's going to be at 10 o'clock, and everybody, we ask you to come out. We normally provide water, and one of the loyal opposition, young man, and he's not able to come out because of his job. But you know what? Every time he brings the cases of water, and he brings a big, big igloo with ice for us on the road. So most times he's the first one there. And that's what I love about my Bajan people. They want to take care of the people. So if we, because we have quite a few elderly people there, we make sure that they're well watered, they're well hydrated, and once we can get a driver, we have a 7-seater that's there. So if you have a license, you can really drive. We need a driver to drive so that, or elderly, if they get tired, they can have a seat, because all of these issues matter to all of us, the elderly,
everyone.
And so, they're going to come out. And so we are saying that we want to feel safe, and there are some things that we can't do for ourselves. So telling us that we need to make sure that we are employing good parental skills in our homes, etc. That's important. But there's some structural things that our leaders need to do. There's some things that the police need to, we can't do.
Right.
Our leaders,
No, everything, it seems, from us, it looks like it's just reactive. Everything is a reaction. There's nothing preventative. So you're always chasing these fires, and in the meantime, more people are dying. More people, is going into this really somber era. So you're adding rape. Yes, there was always that, but now they're taking it to a lowered level. A 76-year-old woman. So I don't know. I don't know what. I think. Do you think that they're going to rethink this law, this tint law? Do you think there's a possibility?
I think if there is enough outrage, I know that I've never seen. I don't think I've ever seen the white community this outrage about anything. And I think because a lot of them, am I stereotyping on the People Show? A lot of them probably, have more tint than us,
right?
And so the white community, white Barbadians. I'm seeing them, I'm seeing the comments from them. They're not too happy.
Right.
And I think they're going to have to rethink this. I went on the street with the microphone, talking Mike on the move, and there's nobody. One little girl said to me, "Mom, this is stupid." You know, this is how I see it.
She
Another
is
girl,
correct.
she said, "Mom, it's stupid." You know, so I don't know. But our host is back. We want to hear them.
Yeah, can you guys hear us yet? We still can't hear. We still can't hear you. So maybe we can talk a little more.
Yes, yes. You know, so Saturday we're coming out to show solidarity. We're inviting all political parties. You
Right.
know, all everybody who is in the opposition. We're inviting churches too. We're inviting schools. We're inviting everybody to come out from
Mm-hmm.
all walks of life. Wear your Barbados colors. You know, have
Right.
your flag, have the
Yes.
Barbados flag. We're going to have some flags for you. But come out
Mhm.
in your numbers and register your concern. And it is not that, I mean, it's our issues that this is not a march against tint. This
Mhm.
is a march declaring to our leaders that we expect more from you. We
And
expect more from you. That is what this march is about.
and one of the things that I heard, I don't have all the details, but I heard that there was some enforcement going on over the weekend, and apparently it was very aggressive. So I don't know if it's widely reported or if it was just a one-off situation. But I heard, and I saw a video or something coming across the news, that there was an incident where guns were drawn, and it was about a driver, and telling them that they were doing, that they were doing something that they shouldn't be doing with the tint. This is like 2 days ago.
That is
I
crazy.
I don't
Enforcement.
know, yeah,
Yeah.
if it was just a one-off situation, but that is adding insult to injury, if that is true. I don't know if it's really true.
Listen, they themselves are not convinced of it. Go back and watch those MPs. Go back and watch it. They're not convinced that this is a crime fighting solution.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, because look at Trinidad. Look at
Yeah,
Trinidad. Trinidad instituted this tint law. And look at the crime that is happening in Trinidad.
that's has completely exploded in Trinidad.
In Trinidad, right?
Yeah, and
So
it's not stopping. It's even worse than it's bad.
So why do we think it's going to work here if it's not working in Trinidad? And as I said, you know, the march is not an anti-tint march. This particular march, we are saying to our leaders that we need real answers. We
Mhm.
don't want no jokey answer. This is not no jokey or sporty answer. You understand?
Mhm.
Get up
Yeah.
and coming up with something because you think that you're going to, you want money. You want more
Another
money from us. And that's
another
the thing.
question. Sorry, another question I had is, who is profiting? Who owns the company? Who is taking care of removing the tint? Because that's another aspect of it. Who owns that company?
But I think, can you hear me clearly now?
Oh, I can hear you. I can hear you, Felicia.
We're trying to use all the technologies that we can right now. So please, our
Okay.
viewers, please bear with us. As I said before, we have new equipment so that DLP TV could be at the cutting edge. Now, we have been discussing, I've been hearing the discussion with Marcia and Sue. Thank you very much for standing in for us, and very
Yeah, you're
informative,
welcome.
very engaging. And the question that you ask raises other fundamental questions. And I will have to add, we would like to ask the government if the tint regulation, is it a traffic offense or is it a criminal offense? Because of
Mm,
the kinds of intervention that I myself witnessed yesterday, where someone was pulled over for tint, and
mm,
the heavy guns that I saw, I wanted to know if it was really a criminal offense or is it a traffic regulation that we need to look at. And one of the questions, I think, when we began speaking on citizenry safety and how safe are you at home, is a question of we as citizens. It seems as though we are becoming criminalized indirectly, because now we have to put more security cameras, we have to be more vigilant, we have to ensure that our car is not overly tint, although we want to ensure that, you know, we want to be safe. So now what I want to have the discussion with our colleagues here is what I left off is the concerns in terms of what are some of the causes of crime that we can recognize. Not that we're saying that we're sociologists, but what are some of the causes that we believe that can alleviate some of the problems? Because we heard from the sociologists today, and we also heard from the religious sector as well, because they're taking a moral perspective. And then we're hearing the sociologists taking a more academic, theoretical perspective on the nature of crime. Because what we're seeing the government is hopefully trying to do is to alleviate the consequences of crime, to reduce the levels of death, violent deaths within our society, and of course to make society members feel safe. But the question that remains, are we feeling safe in this society? Are we feeling safe at home? And also, I would like to just jump in and add that part as well, is that we're seeing teachers at school do not feel safe. So the violence has spiraled, not only on the streets, but now it's in the schools and it's in every sector. And just recently, we saw it at a church during a funeral. So these are the kinds of violent nature, I think, that we really need to get to the bottom of. And it's not really a matter of just tint, but also in terms of the consequences and the main factors as to how it belongs. So what do you think, Conrad?
So in regards to causes,
Can hear so well.
Thank you.
oh, that's great. That is great. I know that we said we weren't going to tread upon the feet of the sociologist in regards to our answer, but my first degree is in psychology.
Okay.
Right.
Great.
And we studied. Yeah. So we studied what were the causes of what could be the possible causes of crime, and you have discussions that delve into nature, whether it's something that is passed on from parent to child, or is it nurtured? Is it something where parenting, lack of parenting, or even something that you learn socially in the home? Is it something that children see and they learn and they act out? Poverty. Is there a link between a lack of economic growth within the home, or economic opportunities, or that failure to self-actualize and achieve your goals, pass through school successfully, go on to gain maybe a skill or your tertiary education at UE, and then find yourself into your dream career? Does that failure then spiral you into going into other avenues? Is it illegal drugs, right? Is it something that we're someone who delves into using illegal drugs, when they become addicted, when they want to get that next fix, do they do what they can to get it? There is no one correct answer, right? But there's a plethora of things that you can look at in regards to why maybe a society or people in a society may delve into crime. And I think that when you tackle crime from a holistic approach, you have to look at all of these things, because there's no one answer. There may be a combination of things. And as a government or even an opposition, our political advocacy must speak to these things and try to alleviate those issues, while trying to not punish a society by going into other avenues such as tint. Because why should someone who has a tint on their car be punished, who probably never even committed a crime themselves? They're being punished for the actions of others. And you're saying this is a solution, or one of a solution, but really and truly you've not proven that by showing the data. Where is the data to say that, okay, if we take the tints off of vehicles, that crime will drop? You have none. So basically it is a backwards approach. And while at the same time you're punishing individuals who just want to stay cool in their car, who want to protect their seats or have a little privacy in their vehicle. So we have to look at the plethora of causes, rather than just say, oh, it is this, and then legislate against it.
Sure, and you brought a very important part in terms of nature and nurture. Nature primarily mean, and there's a lot of scientific research on that, that criminal genes could be passed on through parent to children, and lots of research has been done. I think there was even a case where, I don't know if persons heard about this movie that was made about, called The Silent Twin, where twins, they have the capability of influencing criminal behavior. They were Barbadians, by the way. And it's something that you can look at. And so the question, and I think it's really a philosophical question as well, does crime develop through nature or something that is nurtured? And if it's nurtured, then how do we deal with it? And if it's nurtured, how do we deal with it? And so you're seeing the dichotomy between the two. But let me ask our colleague, nature or nurture?
Well, even before I answer that
Yeah.
question directly, I want to answer a couple of questions
Right.
asked previously when you spoke about
Yes.
the heavy-handed way the police approach Barbadians. You said it was yesterday, I think it was. And first and foremost, the police cannot draw a firearm on the citizen of Barbados without just cause. And just cause means that that police himself or herself will have to feel threatened. The individual with whom the police is interacting with must present a danger to the police. That person himself must have drawn a weapon or threaten the public. Outside of that, the police would be in breach of the law. And the citizen then can either report the matter to the police complaints authority, or there could be an action in court against the police service of Barbados. I want to be fair in what I'm going to say now. Crime will always be with us. I think that's a fair comment. We will always have crime. But under the Democratic Labour Party, crime was managed. We see that we had an explosion of crime in 2021. And this Barbados Labour Party-led government has done a poor job in managing crime. Not that we will not have crime, but they have not managed crime effectively. And you asked the question, what are the root causes of crime? Right? You have youth unemployment and economic despair. For example, you have high unemployment rates in the age group or age category between 16 and 30. Yet this government is screaming that there's bounty. You have the informal settlements and underdeveloped urban areas which offer fertile ground for gangs. There's lack of training and jobs and even entrepreneurship resources for young people and Barbadians who want to get into business. There's social breakdown. You have the erosion of family structures and community accountability. You have a rising mental health issues and untreated trauma. And then you have that segment of our population where there's poverty and hopelessness.
I think Marcia has to leave. So Marcia, can you just add your final words? She's left. Okay, well, thank you, Marcia. We just wanted to say thank you very much. Sorry about that.
I'll continue. Yes, my third point would be we have very poor policing infrastructure and intelligence. For example, the police is under-resourced. And then you send someone who don't have the resources to go there and deal with an issue. What do you expect? We have inadequate use of forensic surveillance and modern technologies. And then we have weak policing in our communities. There's number four, we have a proliferation of firearms. And these firearms are being smuggled through our ports and porous borders. So it says to me that government is not doing a good job at policing the ports, the airport, and the two seaports, the one in Bridgetown and the one in St. Peter. Right? There's a failure to adequately control imports and conduct regular inspections. We have to look at the barrels, we have to look at the containers, and that's something that government can do. We already have the customs and the immigration department.
What about canines? Do you think that they would make a difference in terms of what we see in other countries where the use of canines? I think they do use it in Barbados, but how frequent do you think that we should use that kind of intelligence?
Yes, we need to use all of our resources. And I also want to talk about education.
We'll come back to that. 1 minute. 1 minute for the education. But I think it's important that we have to tell our viewers as well. We have our other panelists who's actually in technology, so you would see it coming back on. But the very serious question and concern that you also raise is policing in the community. And I think Professor Devlish also touched on that we need to build that relationship with the police force and the communities, which is very important because we cannot use them in isolation. The police unit cannot be seen as something separate from the community. No one in the community should feel fearful of the police. They should be working in collaborations with the police. But then again, we hear the Prime Minister saying that if you see something, say something. If there's not a good relationship or a holistic relationship with law enforcement and the community, can you foresee the kind of impact that it would have? And do some communities, what I believe what Professor Devlish was also saying, that some communities feel at a disadvantage. In some cases, they feel that you've been profiled. So very recently we had a section about society cordoned off for intervention, and of course these are the kinds of questions and there was a huge debate on that as well, that certain members or certain parts of the society have been disfranchised or been victimized because of that. But at the same time, we were seeing the level of crimes in those pockets of areas within our society. But what are your thoughts, since you raised the issue of policing in the communities? I will start with Mr. Fanus first, our comrade, and I'll come to you because you have some great points that I don't want you to miss. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can see that there has been basically a breakdown in the relationship between the community and police. And you can tell yourself that obviously that you would want that relationship to continue and to be fostered. You want to build that trust between your police and your community, because you want to be able to report those crimes or to tell them that, hey, listen, there's something that's going on in my particular part of my district or whatever, and you need to come and take a look at this. But the trust or the mistrust that has been fostered between both the community and police is something that is untenable. You want people to report that something is going on. And at the same time, you don't want heavy-handed tactics used by the police to come and enforce whatever laws that they think is being broken. So in the same sense, I will go back to what happened in the point. I question the legality of that, right? But at the same time, something has to be done, but not like after the horse has gotten away from the stable. You don't want to come across as too heavy-handed, but you want to come across as firm. So we need to foster those community ties again. Maybe the police can probably do some more drive-throughs and probably just walk on to particular blocks and,
Friendly drive-throughs.
Friendly drive-through. We don't want the heavy-handed drive-through. We want the friendly drive-throughs to show that the police presence is there, or even foster more community activities between the police and the community so that trust can be rebuilt. But at the same time, we want to also hold police accountable when they overstep or they overreach, so that when say someone complains, that they can see that, well, okay, this person is being reprimanded at the same time because of something that they might have done that might have probably violated their constitutional right as well. So in that sense, that is my contribution in regards to that.
Thank you so much. Comrade, what do you think? I would come back in terms of community, and we'll come to Sue after. Let me just get your point on policing in the community. Do you think that more of it should be done to spill, not in terms of enforcement, but to say serving the community, because the police is really serving the people. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there are 4 points I want to raise here. And I don't want to blame the police one bit.
No, we're not. We're
Right?
not.
It's a failure of the Barbados Labour Party led government. Go get him, Jason. Right? And they have policing without reform. Right? So the Barbados Labour Party increased police presence, but without investing in community policing. Digital crime fighting or officer training in de-escalating and youth engagement, right? I also want to say that there's a policy gap insofar as this government is concerned. The Barbados Labour Party focused heavily on fiscal austerity and international optics. For example, they look at the IMF restructuring while neglecting community development. The social programs were cut or defunded. These are the failures of the Barbados Labour Party led government. You have inconsistent crime policy. Crime strategies under the Barbados Labour Party government have been reactive, not preventative. In other words, there's a problem, a crime in a district, they run and deal with that. There's another problem, they run or they react to that. But they're not looking at some of the preventative measures that can be put in place. For example, like I said earlier, let the highways and byways be properly lit. If you look at the boardwalk on the South Coast, why can't that be properly lit? And then you have police traversing the neighborhood. They can either be on the big walking up and down the boardwalk, just 2 police officers, or you can have them traversing in cars. Simple things like that could be done. We also have a neglect of at-risk communities. Marginalized communities such as the Pine, New Orleans, Deacons, and parts of St. Lucie and St. Philip were left behind. No new community centers or training hubs were built in these communities, despite the government promise to do that. Now, if you have community centers and so on in these communities, you can have after-school programs to keep the young people engaged. It's not too hard. It's not too hard at all.
No, it's not. But we're going to turn over to Sue. What are your thoughts? And thank you, Sue, for holding on for us while we were having our technical challenges. What are your thoughts on it? Again, the question, nature or nurture? And of course, community policing. How do we think about it, particularly when we think about safety in our homes? What are your thoughts on that?
So I would lean towards nurture, because I think your environment has a lot to do with your environment really impacts you. So I would lean towards nurture. With community policing, what I've seen in New York, there's a particular community in New York that community policing has worked, and you see it very well. When these community members, for example, they go to church on Sabbath, you will see police officers with them, their kids, their babies, it looks like a family. And over the years that you've watched that community use community policing, it has worked wonders with them. And I don't know why. Have we ever had any semblance of some kind of community policing in Barbados? Do you know?
Well, they have. Well, like our comrade have said, some of the funding had been reduced because of fiscal matters. And these are some of the concerns that we want to raise. What is the kind of conditions with the police? And the other question I would like to ask, would you feel, and I want our audience as well to share their thoughts, Would you feel safer if you saw policemen in your communities? Is there a sense of security and safety if more policemen, patrol in the communities, have a better relationship with members of the community? And I will start with you, Sue, and then we will come back to our panelists here, our passionate panelists. Go ahead.
Right. So I think that yes, more police in the community could work, but you said an important thing there: the relationship and the engagement with the community that they're in. Because if there's some communities in the U.S. the police are there, but you can see a hostility. So there's no connection between the community members and the police. But what I'd say is I would love to see that if there is some building of a relationship, building, of community and community spirit between the police and the community. I think that it could work because the police would, they would know your kids when they're young and they're growing up with you. And they'd be able to pull back, Kevin, and say, you know what, I knew you when you were 4, and I see that you are going down the wrong road. And, let me talk to you a minute. Come over here, let's have, and those types of things would help. So yes, I would say yes to police in the community, more visible, if there is going to be some program to build a relationship and some kind of engagement in the community in which they're policing.
Thank you very much, Sue. Damien, we'll go back to you and go ahead.
Yes, I believe it's something that can greatly benefit community, and not only benefit the community, it can benefit the police as well.
Yes.
It can benefit the police, the Barbados Police Service, because then once that engagement and that relationship has been fostered, your presence will be welcome. And not only would it be welcome, people will feel at ease to come and approach you, tell them, well, hey, it might not even to be to report a crime. They just come and say, well, listen, can you come and speak to the fellows on the block? I'm having this, I have this event that's coming off, and I want you to come and share your story as to how you became a policeman, why you became a policeman, and where you see Barbados going once the police have engaged with the youth and foster that relationship so as to take them down a path away from illegal activity or illicit activities. I myself have interacted with individuals. When I had my trouble at school, I was sent to the juvenile liaison scheme.
Right.
And I interacted with a particular police officer who was my counselor at the time. And he told me to pursue your dreams. You want to go and join the Barbados Defense Force Sports Program? Pursue. And even though that I was hard-headed at the time, and he worked and he worked and he worked, and he found that little boy in me. And that relationship helped me to get back on that path. So I believe that right path, just not any path, but the right path. So I believe that once the police foster that engagement in the communities, it will be beneficial to everyone, the youth, the parents of those youth, and the community in the whole.
Thank you for sharing.
While I would say that the police has a part to play in community policing and so on, and you can even go as far as talk about digital crime tracking, I want to hold the Barbados Labour Party-led government feet to the fire, because there are a number of areas that they should be looking at. For example, youth development. Why isn't there an innovative grant? For example, the devil finds work for idle hands to do. Why can't you take a derelict building on Robert Street and do a program where the government have a private sector, public sector relationship? The government fits the building for the owner of that building, and perhaps someone is interested in geriatric nursing. Therefore, you get a nurse now who wants to be an entrepreneur. That person can now lease that building from the private party and have a geriatric nursing home there. Now, you can take some of the pressure off of government at their geriatric facilities or clinics or hospital, if you want to call it that. For example, the government can send 5 or 10 senior citizens to that home, and that person who's not running that nursing home is given a subvention. That person also can hire private citizens. So you have this public sector, private sector relationship. You could also look at education. We need alternative schools, after school programs, and so on. And listen, this educational system that we have here is a colonial educational system. It is not meeting the needs of the labor market, right? We need to start training our citizens into artificial intelligence, start utilizing the computers and so on. No one is interested in making things with a fret saw or coping saw. Those days are done, right? The government must get on board and make things creative and innovative, that these young people will be interested in getting involved in these things. They have failed the Barbadian public. We also have to look at infrastructure.
Let me come back to that. When you touch on education, I wanted to ask the question, do you think that the majority of policies or legislation that the government has passed or attempting to pass have been too punitive, or do we need more rehabilitative intervention? And it also stems back from what I recently heard from the Prime Minister of Trinidad, where students who engage in violent offenses at school will not only be expelled, but also legal and criminal actions will be meted against them. So my question is, what is the role of the state, the responsibility of the state? Do we think that it's too punitive? Because the nature of being too punitive is now that we're seeing, as I said before, that citizens, law-abiding citizens, are now being penalized for unlawful behaviors of others. And so we're seeing people are buying more cameras, people are becoming more isolated. And it also tells you, and I wanted to ask that question from an individual basis. So we were talking about the fear that we get when we're at home. But how do you feel when you get out of a supermarket or the gas station? Do you always feel that you have to look back? Is that kind of fear, is it emerging, or is it evolving in such a way that we are becoming untrustful of our own citizens, of our own neighbors, of our own countrymen and women? There was a time where there was a claim that anytime you saw a Black man, you had to feel a little bit, and I think this is a stereotype. How does it feel now when we're seeing all of that increase of violent crimes, and young Black males are the ones that are perpetrating those crimes? And so not only for the women that are online, but our males as well. When you see a young man, do you feel like I have to pull my clutch aside? Do I have to lock my doors because of the levels of violence? And I think from an individual basis, these are some of the consequences of when a government infringes, puts those restrictions on law-abiding citizens, but also we can see that the mistrust of our own countrymen and women. So how do you feel about that? And so I would like to share that with you. You in the diaspora, how do you feel about such, the eminent fear that you may have with the increase of crimes, and you hearing about your family members wanting to ensure that you're safe when you have visited? Is it the same? Is it the same for you?
It's not the same. It's slightly different. So two things. So in Barbados, yes, I feel a bit more fearful. I'm not at the point where we would say, no, we can't come back. No, we're not there saying, yeah, we can come to Barbados. Yes, we just feel like we have to be more vigilant than we would have been before. So we're never going to say, at this point, we're not going to say, oh my God, it's so bad that we can't come, and crime is so terrible. Crime is bad. It's more concerning, and you have to be more vigilant, and we do a lot of pre-planning, as I was saying last week, when we are in Barbados, before we would just go, where we're going. But now we think more about what time we're going to get there and come back, and where we're going to park. Up here, it's a little different. You were talking about grabbing your bag when you see a black male. So I was part of one of where there was an organization I worked for, and we worked with a lot of young teenage boys and girls, and I discovered a lot of biases that I had, and in working with these young men, I lost a lot of that fear because I was judging them unfairly. And after working with these young men, I realized that, there's a lot of times that we look at young men and say, oh my God, I'm scared. And there are decent young men, they're not criminals. So I've learned, because of that program, I have lost that fear and that prejudice that I may have displayed unfairly in some in some instances. You talked about punitive measures. What I'd say about that is, are we going to condemn a 13 or 14-year-old to the dustbin because he did something, really bad, or, he you expel him from school, and you're going to penalize him, and just like that's the end of his life? You're going to trash his life forever at 13 or 14? I'm not so sure I'm there yet with those measures.
Okay. Thank you for sharing, colleague.
So yes, you would think that the fear is there. The situation with the old man got robbed.
Yes.
That happened in my constituency,
Okay.
St. Michael South Central. And if that can happen in broad daylight, then it fosters that fear. It shows you that now that our communities are not safe anymore, and there is a failure. Whatever that failure is in regards to I guess ensuring that our citizens are safe, there is a failure. So you have to now approach how you go out a bit differently. You have to say, well, should I go today? Should I go tomorrow? Should I go at this time? Should I go with someone? And if something happens, what do I do? Do I let them have what they want? And if I let them have what they want, are they reasonably going to take it and leave me unscathed? Or are they going to just do whatever they want, regardless if I give them the possessions that I have? So there is a fear, and it's fostered, and there is a failure. So we need to approach that, and in our political advocacy, we need to highlight that each and every single time as an opposition.
Well, I would want to focus my mind back on the question. Barbadians should not have to live in fear. How safe are we at home? And really and truly, all of the things that we're discussing here are the symptoms of crime. And we must ask the question, what is the government of Barbados doing to arrest crime in Barbados? I hinted earlier when I said that the government find work for either hands to do. So it's telling me that this government, though they say they have plenty, they are not doing what they should do. And if we don't be careful, the same tourism product that we boast so much about is going to be under threat. This government must pay attention to the high crime in Barbados. For example, I really want to speak now to this whole issue in a realistic manner. I am the candidate for St. Peter. Pray tell me, in St. Peter they have a fishing village called Six Men's Village. Why can't the Barbados Labour Party led government give contracts to farmers and to fishermen in Six Men's Village? For example, you can say to fellas, catch 1,000 pounds of fish and deliver it to the school meals service every Monday. On Friday, give them a check. An arbitrary check, let's say $2,500. At the end of the month, that's $10,000. Young men getting that kind of money, they're not going to have any time to be on the block, getting themselves involved in crime. They can be busy working. And when they come home, they want to get the tools sorted out. They want to get the fish scale packaged and refrigerated. And then it's time for bed. There's no time to be on the road. So we don't want to just police crime, but we want to help Barbadians. We want to give them the tools to distract them from this crime. Because once people are gainfully employed, they can feed their families. There's no room for crime. Now, some people might say, you will do that, and there are still elements in the community that might get involved in crime. But that's a matter for them. And then the police will deal with them. But the government, this Barbados Labour Party government, is not doing sufficient to help ordinary Barbadians.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Conrad. And I know that you always have to express your concerns for your constituents in St. Peter. And I think that's how all of us feel about all of our constituents in this country in terms of the levels of crime and how do we advocate and challenge and champion on the rights of citizens. One of the concerns that I remember during COVID, there was a period of time where we had curfews. And we're seeing other Caribbean countries are looking in terms of using curfews to lessen on crime and to alleviate some of the problems of crime. But what we're seeing is the inverse, where citizens are curfewing themselves because now people do not want to go out after a certain period of time. And very soon we're seeing the festive season is coming, crop over is coming, and we're hearing, very much, I think it was Sue or Marcia spoke about that you're not hearing any kind of bulletin, you're not hearing any kind of warning, that, persons, you have to be on the alert, be very concerned. It seems as the government has left the responsibility of citizenry safety and protection on their own. And citizens have to, in some cases, have to fend for themselves more or less to ensure that they are safe, not only at homes, but into their communities. And so they're basically diverting the responsibility on citizens. They're telling citizens, we can't really do anything now. Now the only solution that we have is the tint. Now, the very first time we heard about the tint legislation, we almost felt it would be a joke, because we thought that the Attorney General may have included other policies that would suffice or include the tint with it. But what we have recognized as citizens is that most of the crimes that are taking place are not only in vehicles. We saw crime being taken place by motorcycles. We have seen crime through persons on their feet. We have seen crimes in various areas. And so the question again is the policies in terms of policy development. And the question, I think the final question that I would want us to discuss. So we've dealt with the family, we've dealt with what has been at home, but the question that we really have to ask now, is the government responsible? And it's not that we politicize in crime, but when we say politicizing crime, we know that a role of a legislator is to ensure that they govern. And part of their responsibility is to ensure that every citizen, regardless of where you're from, where you live, that you feel safe in your communities, that you feel safe at home. We do not want to get the point where we have vigilante justice, where people start taking matters into their hand if they don't feel that they're getting the kind of retribution that they need. And if we see that the government is not doing what is required of them. So I will ask the question, do you think that government has an innate responsibility to protect citizens? Because citizens, there's so much that we can do. We're not the law. We do not have police uniforms at home. We do not have, some of us are not licensed gun owners, so we don't have guns at home. The most we have is probably a machete and some stones. So where is the responsibility of the state? The state is responsible for your safety and security. So that question, I think this is a question we will want to ask. What is the role of the state? And when we think about politicizing crime, we're saying that there's a role of a politician. We know what politicians do. But once you become elected, you become a legislator. And this is where your responsibility comes. So my question is, has the Barbados Labour Party failed the citizens of this country when it comes to crime alleviation and crime context? So we'll go to Sue and then we will come back to our colleagues. Okay, go ahead, Sue. That's the question.
That would be a resounding yes. The Barbados Labour Party has failed this country and its citizens. That's full out, because crime is intimately and permanently married to politics. I don't see how there could be a separation, even based on what you just said, Felicia. They're the policymakers. We pay them to do a job. They're elected to do a job. And, more and more I'm seeing online and in, other spaces, this notion that, what can we do about it? There's crime in the world. There's crime all over the globe. That is infuriating, because as a government, you are elected to do a job. And a part of that job, you have a responsibility to your citizens. You have a responsibility to keep your citizens safe. And it is unconscionable that you would unless and the basic, you're getting a salary is paid by taxpayers, and you're saying to taxpayers, you know what? I'm not responsible. You take this on your own, on yourself, and do what you can, but we have no responsibility to you. That is completely wrong. And to answer the question, the Barbados Labour Party has failed this country and they continue to fail the citizens of Barbados right now in the situation that we're in. You were elected to lead. You were elected to take care of your citizens up to point. People are paying taxes, and heavy taxes. So yes, you have a responsibility.
Thank you for that comment, Sue. And I will agree with you as well that they are being paid. It's not like they miss a salary, but the crime keeps increasing. It's spiral out of control, as we heard from the professor from the university, that if we do not step in immediately, we can see some very ripple effects of crime, and not only into our homes, but to the wider community. But we'll go ahead to our comrade Fanus and give us our thoughts on it. Has the Barbados Labour Party failed when it comes to crime prevention in this country?
And a strategy. Yeah.
So I'm going to borrow something that Jason said. Jason, you had reminded us that some years ago, when our now deceased Prime Minister David Thompson, he had in one of his campaigns, he had highlighted that crime was getting out of control. And to add to what you had said, do you remember how during that campaign, how the Barbados Labour Party responded?
Yes, they jeered us.
They jeered him, right? And there was even a political ad where that it was mocked up where crime and violence, using back his voice, right? And while our dearly past Prime Minister was trying to say, hey, listen, crime is getting out of control, and we need to focus on this. And that was probably like what, 20 years ago? It was
2008.
probably around that.
No, before that.
It was before that. So probably over 20 years ago. Yeah, and he had the foresight to say, well, listen, the vision that listen, this is getting out of hand. This is getting out of hand, and we need to address this. So you can take from that the Barbados Labour Party has never been an administration that was serious on the policing of crime. They've never been an administration that was serious in making policy in regards to addressing crime. They've spoke about policy, but in a sense, they've never really enacted effective policy to, in a sense, capture the individuals before they're lost. So that's why we need to focus now on educational reform, socioeconomic reform, criminal justice reform. because you don't want a situation where someone comes into or is captured by the police in regards to something that they've done, and then they sit on remand for 10, 15 years, and then the state has to pay them, before they have their cases heard, because that person has the right to due process, constitutional right, a constitutional right to have a speedy trial and to have their matter heard. And what if, because the police sometimes, you don't want to attack them, they make mistakes. Sometimes they might have captured the wrong person. So that person may be sitting down in a prison on remand for 15 years, not having their cases heard, and innocent. So there has to be a holistic approach. And that is where we have to hold the Barbadian party accountable, and as Jason would say, hold their feet to the fire.
Thank you for sharing that. And it's an important point that you highlighted in terms of, because we're hearing the government, the state, making claims that they have been judicial reform in terms of hiring more judges. But we've seen how it's at work, because we've seen cases that have lasted over decades. And then you hear the trials being done, and then you hear the outcome, the verdict. Could you imagine someone that was offended or been the perpetrator of the offense or the act may have happened when the person was a teenager or even a child? And we're hearing cases 10 years and 15 years later. So how do you reduce crime when persons are not seeing the kind of intervention, judicial intervention that is necessary? But we will come to our comrade here that the question that I asked, and I know that you have an answer already. The Barbados Labour Party, have they done sufficient intervention or advocacy or taken the mantle when it comes to the reduction of crime in this country? And are they also, in terms of, their responsibility as a state?
Parliament makes law for good governance. And by extension, the Barbados Labour Party-led government has a mandate to ensure that the people of Barbados are safe. And so far, they have been irresponsible. As I said before, there was an explosion of crime in Barbados from the year 2021. And to date, the Barbados Labour Party-led government has not managed crime. We know that you cannot get rid of crime. We are fair in saying that. Crime will always be with us. Jeremiah 17 says, the hearts of men are desperately evil. Who can know it? But government has a responsibility to manage crime. Under the Democratic Labour Party, there was crime. But the then government managed crime. Today, almost every single week, there's a murder. So of course, government is responsible. 21 murders in 22 weeks. I think that's Italian.
Correct.
It is horrible. And to say that government cannot be responsible for crime is a cop-out. You have to find things that will engage the minds of your citizens. And the third thing to do is to find employment. As I said, the age group between 16 to 30 are unemployed. Those people are in their best and most productive years. And a lot of them are wasting away in prison. Listen, it is better for government to focus on things like the skill training. Right now, a lot of people are not satisfied with the amount of money paid as a stipend. For me, it is cheaper for the Barbados government to increase that stipend and engage our people in training and retooling than to have to spend large amounts of money in a prison or in the healthcare, in the Ministry of Health, or buying more ambulances. Right? And another thing, police must be retooled. They need proper uniforms. This Barbadian pants and cotton shirt is not cutting it anymore. You need to clothe the police in clothing that would resist puncture and so on. Proper police, we call it again, bulletproof vests.
Yes. And cameras, do you think
You need body cameras. Invest more in drones. Show us that you are serious. You're borrowing a lot of money. Where's it going?
But I want to ask another question. On what we have been seeing is a government that's highly taxed economy. They're taxing our citizens, there's extravagant taxes in various areas, different forms, but also the levels of criminalizations of citizens. And I will reiterate that because we're seeing again, the Cybercrime Act bill may come, very much around the corner. We hear that coming emerge again. Then we're seeing the tint law being enacted. And so we're seeing those kinds of areas where the government believes that the more that they tax citizens is the better for them, and also to criminalize citizens. Now, the question that we'd want to focus on, or even the suggestion, is the question that we started off with. Not only how safe are you at home, but how do you feel about the responses of the government? Not that we've already touched on, but the responses, how do they respond? We're seeing the levels of violent crimes in terms of gun violence. We've seen the levels of violence that is escalating around school parameters. I think very recently we had a gun violence in a school environment,
Not only that,
not too far from the school. We're seeing it in gas stations.
young people getting shot.
Young persons are dying, minors are dying from gun violence, the elderly. And so the question I think we have to ask every Barbadian at this point is not only how safe are you at home, but do you believe and strongly believe that the government can do better where you are concerned? Because you are paying the taxes in every way that you can. You're paying every tax that the government has. You've never said, no, we're not paying. You've gone out and you've paid it. But the government is not putting on their end. They're not, in other words, when it comes to their responsibility, they're denying that they have that responsibility to protect citizens, more or less. So now what they're trying to do is to say, well, you know what, we're going to penalize everyone. We're going to ensure that we're going to charge everyone if you have tint. And the question about that, which is a very concerning question. So now law-abiding citizens have to now go and get vehicles, their vehicles on tint. They have to think about the cybercrime bill might come around the corner at any point. And so citizens are placed at a disadvantage. It almost feels that the government has turned its back on citizens, not wanting to see how citizens really feel. If we are seeing the most vulnerable in our society, the elderly, where they could have fell, they could have gone and, the pension check, go to the bank and withdraw the money, not having to feel fearful or not having to go to the field and being sexually violated. These are serious concerns, broad daylight. And the government is saying that citizens, not only the Democratic Labour Party, but citizens are politicizing crime, which means that they're reflecting everything back on the citizens, ordinary citizens like myself and yourself, that just want to live a normal life in a society where we do not have to look back or we do not have to run home after a certain period of time. And these are the kinds of questions I think that we need to ask ourselves. Do we really feel safe in this country? But what we do know is that there is a certain sector of this society that feels safe. Every government minister is safe right now. Every government minister is safe because they have protection. They have the tinted vehicles. They feel safe. But you, the citizens that pay the taxes, are you safe? And I think that's the question that we need to highlight and ensure that our citizens understand that they have that right to feel safe, just as the MPs, just as the ministers, just as the prime minister, that they should feel safe as well. And I think that's the question. So what do you think about that? Because we'll be closing out very soon. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think that from where we sit up here, we see it looks like if the government is treating its citizens with utter disdain and disrespect. And then you add insult to injury with a tint law. So all in all, it just looks like there is no, there's the infamous mere cares, but we're not seeing that care. We're not seeing that concern for citizens. It seems as if there is this race to see how much more you can tax Barbadians, how much more you can burden them. Because look at their policies. If you look at their policies between 2018 until present, how have regular Bajans, how have you grown? How are your young adult children like seeing access to better jobs, more opportunities? And it just seems like there's this disdain and disrespect, and it's not even being couched or hidden. It's kind of right out in the open now.
Yeah. Thank you. Damien?
My personal view is that as a politician or somebody who is a representative of a constituency candidate, you cannot govern, you cannot represent, you cannot legislate from an office. You have to get in trenches. You have to get in. You have to be there each and every single. Well, we're not going to say every single day, but you have to be there often enough so that you can be in tune with the people. So then when you go back now and you say, well, listen, I've identified a problem and we need to address it, that your approach is not, in a sense, out of touch. Because my feelings on the tint law is that you are basically punishing individuals. You are punishing individuals for something that they probably never even touched in their life. Most individuals who probably just want to stay cool in the sun, who've never held a firearm, who've never engaged in illicit activities, are now paying the price and penalties and civil fines for what you think is going to be an approach to curbing crime with no data. So I would tell anyone who wants to get into political life and political advocacy, you cannot do it from a comfortable office, an air-conditioned office. You have to do it from inside the community itself.
Yes.
It's comrade.
The truth is, crime in Barbados is out of control. And the Barbados Labour Party led government is guilty of dereliction of duty. There's no two ways about it. It hurts my heart to see where we have come to. Barbados has been a stable and safe island from the time I knew myself. And now we are facing a conundrum. And I said it tonight, and I'm going to say it again. If this government does not manage crime in this country, we're going to have a problem with our tourism industry, and that is going to cause problems for all the other industries, whether it's construction or what have you. People are going to be afraid to come to Barbados. And Barbadians are not going to socialize. So you're going to have a drop-off in spending. People are going to get sent home. This is a very serious problem. The Barbados Labour Party-led government must manage crime. And they must manage it now.
But the question I also want to ask, thank you, comrade. The question I think, and you brought up a very salient point, that the MPs seem to be out of touch with the constituents. Because if you're hearing every Barbadian is talking about the levels of crime, we're seeing it in the media, and we would like to thank the media for doing an honest job and then highlighting those issues, because many times we would have not have known about those issues. Would like to thank the victims for coming out and informing us as to what has happened, because that elderly lady felt that she had to inform the public what happened to her. And it's very difficult for a victim of sexual violence to come out to the public and inform other societal members that this is a matter that we have to immediately become aware of and be vigilant of. So if they're out of touch, if the MPs are out of touch with the constituents, do you think that the AG is aware? Do you think the Prime Minister is aware of these concerns? Because they seem too concerned about the levels of crime or the concerns from citizens, that everyone has a deep concern that this is how we living in fear. What are you going to do? And if the MPs are not, because I believe every MP would be in the constituency having those same discussions, they're policemen, they're everyone in the community, and they would have that conversation that this has happened. And let's not forget the levels of petty crime and car robberies and car hijacking too, because it happens. We just don't call it carjacking because hijacking because it happens. We've had a number of cases where the persons have been pulled over and their car have been stolen, but we don't think about that. We don't think about in terms of persons within the society and how they feel about drive-by shootings, which is what we have, but we don't call it those terms. And so all of those areas, I think what is very important is that now we're seeing the media is highlighting those issues so that the public becomes more aware. But we have a silent, cowardice AG that is not speaking on those issues, not informing the public as to what is happening, or do we need to be more protective of ourselves, our children, and of course our properties. Because even the question of having increasing licensed firearm has been a debate as well, because people feel that they need to take laws into their own hands. And I think these are the kinds of questions. So for Barbadians, what is the role of your MP? Have you spoken to your MP about the levels of violence within your community and in the country as a whole? And what have been their responses? Have they intervened on your matter? Have they addressed it in some way or passed on the message? Because it seems that we are the law-abiding citizens are the only one that are aware of the crime, but except the MPs. What are your thoughts on that? Before we
is there still parish speaks going on?
Well, they should. Well, I think our We Gathering has taken over Paris Speak, so we're not sure as to what is happening with that. But hopefully it should be. It coincides with Regathering, so what
I saw some. Sorry.
Go ahead. I'm so sorry about that.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say that I saw somebody in the comments saying tone deaf. Hi, Dawn.
Yes.
And that's exactly what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it walks like. They're not reading the room, they're not reading the country, and I think they don't want to read it because they are on a different agenda. They just want to win. They don't want to govern, and they don't care, what else happens after that. We just want to win. And all the other trappings that go with that, and here we are in 2025 in a crisis. Can't leave our homes, or I have family members who have, I would say, have stopped living because they're not going out anymore. They're making sure that they get home when it's light, and they've stopped going to some of the things that they would normally enjoy. So your standard of living is deteriorating as well in more ways than one.
Thank you, Sue, and I will give you your final thoughts on the topic since you're here. Go ahead.
So I'll just say that Barbadians, I think that one of the things Marcia was talking about earlier is the march, and I really feel that Barbadians need to come out in their numbers for the march on June 14th. If we were at home, we would have been there, because we have to send a strong message to the Mia Motley-led government that this is not okay and we're not all right. And, you know, $300 and all of these gimmicks and parties, that's not, you know, that's not the reality of our lives right now in Barbados. And I hope that that Barbadians come out in their numbers to send a message about this serious crisis that's going on. There's blood
Thank
in the
you.
streets. There's blood running.
Thank you very much, Sue. Always a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
I will always say, I quoted this each and every single time that I come on Democratic Party TV, DLP TV, that a democracy is only as strong as its opposition. And we need a voice in Parliament. We need to have individuals in Parliament who are going to raise these issues. Because when the Barbados Labour Party or the opposition, they use their power as opposition to highlight whatever issues they had, marches or whatever. We need the opposition Parliament. Ask my fellow brothers and sisters that you come out and you show your support. Get behind your candidates. Get behind your candidates and get them into the House of Parliament so that we can hear your views, so that we can tell the country what is going on and represent you. That is all I say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, I'm going to speak directly to the Barbadian people and to the Barbados Labour Party-led government. I love my country. And I'm not happy at all with the high level of crime on this small 21 by 14 island. So I'm going to try to give you some solutions to assist my people, the Barbadian public. You know, I got just about 4 little things I have to say. Because we do not manufacture guns in Barbados.
Go ahead.
Right? So if you're not doing it, start to share information, intel with the other CARICOM countries. Have some after-school programs to keep the youth employed. Right? Improve public lighting. It's a crazy shame that this country is a tourism country and stretches of the highway, you got lights not burning. Embarrassment. But not only is it an embarrassment, it is dangerous because people are at risk in those dark spots. And finally, please, have some town hall meetings. Adopt a sport district partnership program. In other words, come off your high horses and get back to the people.
Thank you very much, Conrad. You've given them 4, and I hope they are listening, since the MPs do not go into their constituents to hear the concerns and crimes that they've had about crime. To our viewers, we wish.
Oh, yes.
Well,
mention that, please.
Thank you, Comrade, to remind the government that they did promise the people of St. James North that it would have proper lighting with the last 2 weeks, and we haven't seen it as yet. So hopefully that they can intervene on that matter as quickly as possible. And the reason why we brought that up, because one of the constituents did share that there were a number of sexual violence towards women in those areas. So we're appealing again to the government, do the right thing and ensure that the lighting infrastructure is done. But I'd like to thank all our viewers, all the members of the Democratic Labour Party, all citizens that continue to support the opposition. We are working hard on your behalf, and we are hoping that as many of you come to the march. We will be at Kensington at 10 a.m. on Saturday. So come out. I know some of us are very fearful that we do not want the government to victimize you if you attend the march. But if you know someone, go with someone, tell someone about it so that we make the changes in this country, because it seems that this government does not care about the cries of people, not only dealing with crime, education, agriculture, every sector of our society. And so the question that I would leave with all citizens is, how safe are you at home? And if you do not feel safe, then you know that you have the power and responsibility as a citizen to right the wrongs for every citizen in this country. Thank you again for joining us. Good night, and have a safe and productive week. Blessings.
Good night,
and
everybody.
goodbye.
Good night. Good night, Miss Sweet Pea, and good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Aye, aye, aye. Oh, yeah, yeah. Aye, aye, aye. Walaka. Can't drive on the road at night, cause you come with your lights so bright, like you want blind me for spite. It is overbearing. Me and you never had no war. Why you spot the light on me for? Is it accidental or you just so uncaring? Every day you bout me complaining all the things that ain't going right. From now on I will be explaining which place you could spot the light. Spot the light in the parliament and see who is looking out for you or barely fooling we. Spot the light in the right places and find out who is on the people's side and who's selling out. Don't spot it on me, you joke. I don't be at no port when guns coming in. I am sure cowboys and Indians, no, don't spot it on me, you idiot. When taxpayers' money waste, don't spot it in my face. You better spot the light man who run the place. I don't run the government, I know if they're competent. Don't spot it on me, Bozy. Spot the light man the DLP. Oh yeah, yeah. Aye, aye, aye. Walaka. Blinding you with the LEDs. Them said are doing as they please. Don't tell the authorities I feel violated. Go spot them in the treasury, then you will see if the economy living off borrowed money that IMF dictated. Light is a great disinfectant. Use it, don't abuse it at night, cause all that hide in the darkness must come out in the light. Spot the light in the board meetings and see who is representing you, or the rich minority. I want you spot the light in the right places and find out who is standing up for you or just running them out. Don't spot it on me, no way. I don't have any clout, no power, no say, but hey, and I ain't got no land to give away. Don't spot it on me, you idiot. One for you, another one quit. Don't target me one bit. You better spot the light on the cabinet. I may drive and get annoyed. Check my front and touch a boy. Don't spot it on me, you insane. You spot the light in the wrong lane. Why, yeah. Aye. Walaka. When you see me on the road at night, make sure that you dim your light. I give you valuable insight. Time for activation. Aim the light, aim it all about. Demon cockroaches running out. Places you will never dream about. Need illumination. Wickedness reside in high places. Time for you to make wrong things right. Corruption is hiding dark spaces. In Barbados, let there be light. Spot the light on the police, you can choose. Some are real professional, some protect the shoes. Spot the light in the courtrooms and find out why them hardened criminals bout here walking bout. Don't spot it on me, you're free. I can't give a big speech and got the whole world, so I'm dazed. All now I still getting praise. Don't spot it on me, you're free. I ain't look no gate at George Street, I know who get cussed or beat. Spot the light out in Robert Street. I never tried to meet with Trump or get sent fed up man to jam. Don't spot it on me, getting worse. Spot the light on the AG first. I ain't laughing out none. Spot the light on the Kaisonian. Admiral might agree. Spot the light on my friend Gabby. I know what good for my health. Spot the light by your blinking